Part 6, Chapter 22 of Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, translated by Nathan Haskell Doyle. The Slippervox recording is in the public domain. Read by Marianne Spiegel. Finding Dolly already returned, Anna looked scrutinizingly into her eyes, as if she would read there a reply to her wonder what she and Vronsky had been talking about. But she asked no questions. "Dinner is nearly ready, and we have hardly seen each other. I count on this evening, but now I must go and change my gown. I suppose you'd like to do the same. One gets so soiled after such a walk." Dolly went to her room and felt ridiculous. She had no change to make, since she had worn her best gown, but, in order to make some change in her toilet in honor of dinner, she asked the maid to brush the dust off. She changed her cuffs and put on a fresh ribbon, and put some lace in her hair. "It's all I could do," she said laughingly to Anna, who came to her, dressed in a third but very simple costume. "Well, we are very formal here," said Anna, in apology for her elegant attire. "Alexey is so glad that you came. I believe he has fallen in love with you," she added. "I hope you are not tired." Before dinner there was no time for any talk. When they entered the drawing-room they found the Princess Varvara and the gentleman all in evening dress. The architect was the only one that wore a frock-coat. Vronsky presented the doctor and the superintendent to his guest. She had already met the architect at the hospital. A portly butler, wearing a stiffly starched white cravat, and with his smooth round face shining, came and announced that dinner was served, and the ladies stood up. Vronsky asked Sviazhsky to escort Anna Arkadyevna into the dining-room, and he himself offered his arm to Darya Alexandrovna. Veslovsky was quicker than Tushkevitch in handing in the Princess Varvara, so that Tushkevitch went with the doctor and the superintendent. The dinner, the service, the plate, the wine, and the dishes served, not only corresponded to the general tone of new luxury appertaining to the household, but seemed even more luxurious and elegant. Darya Alexandrovna took note of this splendor, which was quite new to her, and, as the mistress of an establishment of her own, she could not help making a mental inventory of the details, and wondering how and by whom it was all done. And yet she had no dream of introducing anything like it into her own home, which was conducted on a scale of far greater simplicity. Vasenka Veslovsky, her own husband, and even Sviazhsky, and many more men whom she knew, had never carried out anything like this, and every one of them believed in the dictum that the master of a well-regulated household always desires to make his guests imagine that the elegance and comfort surrounding them are not any trouble to him, but come about spontaneously. Darya Alexandrovna knew that even such a simple matter as providing kasha for her children's breakfast does not go of itself, and that all the more in such an elegant and complicated establishment there had to be some one in full and complete charge. And by the glances with which Alexey Kirillovitch took in the details of the table, and by the nods which he gave toward the butler, and by the way in which he offered Darya Alexandrovna the choice between botvinia and soup, she understood that everything was done under the direct superintendence of the master of the house. Anna had nothing more to do with it than Veslovsky had. She and Sviazhsky, the princess and Veslovsky, were only guests, gaily and thoughtlessly taking advantage of what was done for them. Anna was khozyaïka, or mistress of the household, only in the management of the conversation, and this conversation was very difficult at a small table among guests belonging to such different spheres of life as the superintendent and the architect, who were trying not to be dazzled by such unwonted splendor, and who were unused to taking part in general conversation. But Anna went through with her task with her usual tact and simplicity, and even with pleasure, as Darya Alexandrovna noticed. The conversation turned first on the way in which Tushkevitch and Veslovsky had gone down alone to the boat, and Tushkevitch began to speak of the recent yacht race under the auspices of the Petersburg Yacht Club. But Anna, taking advantage of the first pause, quickly turned to the architect in order to bring him out of his silence. "Nikolai Ivanovitch was surprised," said she, referring to Sviazhsky, "to see how the new building had grown since he was here last. But I myself am here every day, and every day I am surprised myself to see how fast it progresses." "It is good to work with His Excellency," said the architect smiling. He had a sense of the dignity of his calling, and was a very worthy and self-possessed gentleman. You don't do such work under government patronage. When they would write reams of paper, I simply lay the plan before the count, we talk it over, and 3 words decide it." "American ways," suggested Sviazhsky, smiling. "Yes, buildings there are raised rationally." The conversation then went off on the abuse of power in the United States, but Anna immediately started him on a third theme in order to bring out the superintendent from his silence. "Have you ever seen the steam reaping machines?" she asked of Darya Alexandrovna. "We had just been to see ours when we met you. I never saw one before." "How do they work?" asked Dolly. "Just like scissors. A plank and a quantity of little knives. Like this." Anna took a knife and fork into her beautiful white hands covered with rings, and tried to show her. She apparently saw that she did not make herself very clear, but, knowing that she spoke pleasantly and that her hands were beautiful, she continued her explanations. "Better say penknives," said Veslovsky, with an attempt at a pun, and not taking his eyes from her. Anna smiled almost imperceptibly, but made no reply to his remark. "Am I not right, Karl, that they are like scissors?" she said, appealing to the director. "Oh, ja," replied the German. "Es ist ein ganz einfaches Ding." And he began to explain the construction of the machine. "It is too bad that it doesn't bind the sheaves. I saw one at the Vienna Exposition. It bound them with wire," said Sviazhsky. "That kind would be much more convenient." "Es kommt darauf an. Der Preis von Draht muss auch gerechnet werden." And the German, aroused from his silence, turned for confirmation to Vronsky. "Das lässt sich ausrechnen, erlaucht." The German put his hand into his pocket, where he kept a pencil and notebook, in which he had an exact statement, but suddenly remembering that he was at the dinner table, and noticing Vronsky's cold eyes fastened on him, he controlled himself. "So kompliziert, macht so viel Koplatz," he said in conclusion. "Wünscht man du Schatz, so hat man auch Koplatz," said Vassenka Veslovsky, making sport of the German. "J'adore le monde," he said, with a peculiar smile, turning to Anna. "Ça says," said she, with affected sternness. "We expected to find you on the field," she said to the doctor, who was somewhat infirm. "Were you there?" "I was there, but I evaporated," replied the doctor, with a melancholy attempt at a jest. "It must have been a beautiful motion." "Magnificent." "Well, and how did you find your old woman? I hope it isn't the typhus." "Whether it is typhus or not I can't tell yet, but—" "How sorry I am," said Anna, and having thus shown her politeness to the dependents, she turned again to her friends. "At any rate, it would be pretty hard to reconstruct a machine by following your description, Anna Arkadyevna," said Sviazhsky. "No, why so?" said Anna, with a smile which intimated that she knew there was something charming in her description of the construction of the reaping machines, and that even Sviazhsky had noticed it. This new trait of youthful coquetry struck Dolly unpleasantly. "Still, in architecture, Anna Arkadyevna's knowledge is very remarkable," said Tushkevitch. "Well, yesterday evening I heard Anna Arkadyevna making some wise remark about plinths," said Veslovsky. "Would you find me doing that?" "There is nothing remarkable in that, when one keeps one's eyes and ears open," said Anna. "But don't you know what houses are built of?" Darya Alexandrovna perceived that Anna was not pleased with this tone of badinage which she and Veslovsky kept up, but that she fell into it involuntarily. In this respect Vronsky behaved exactly the opposite to Levin. He evidently attributed not the least importance to Veslovsky's nonsense, but, on the contrary, encouraged this jesting. "Well, tell us, Veslovsky, what they use to fasten stones together." "Cement, of course." "Bravo! And what is cement made of?" "Well, it is something like gruel." "No, a sort of mastic," said Veslovsky, amid general laughter. The conversation among the guests, with the exception of the doctor, the superintendent, and the architect, who generally kept silence, went on without cessation, now growing light, now dragging a little, and now touching to the quick. Once Darya Alexandrovna was touched to the quick, and felt so provoked that she grew red in the face, and afterwards she wondered if she made any